Hello, this is the Revelland Podcast. My name is Stephanie Singer and I'll be your host today. As always, this podcast is a deep dive into the process of transforming gigs into accessible and immersive experiences. I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Martijn from KNARS, who's going to be telling us a bit about his project, his world, and the challenges of coronavirus. You can find an accessible version of this podcast with subtitles and video on our website and YouTube at Discover Revelland. If you're all comfortable, let's begin as we always do with some descriptions. I am a white woman. I've got long blonde hair. I'm wearing a big ring that says VD on it on my index finger. I'm actually sitting in LA, so for me the time is 10 a.m. So I've got morning energy for sure, and a little bit of sunlight pouring through the windows behind me. So without further ado, Martijn, can you give us a little bit of a background and an introduction to who you are and where you're sitting?
Well, hello there. My name is Martijn, but you can call me Martin because that's easier for non-Dutch people. I am a musician, composer, and I am recording this at 7 p.m. So it's evening here, it's dark, but I turn on the light of my sort of vlogging light setup, and I've got a camera in front of my computer that is filming me, and I'm looking at the screen where Steph is, and I have a blue sweater on that has a print of Disney's Fantasia on it, so I'm wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt. I am a Caucasian male and I have sort of slight blonde red hair and should shave my beard more often. And what else can I say? I'm a producer, music maker, and I've been invited by Can or Possibilize or now Revelland to be challenged to create a more immersive live show for my band KNARS, because I'm a multi-purpose creative and my main project here is KNARS, but I also have a lot of other projects going on, but we'll be focusing on this one today.
And so if you were to sort of describe the sound or the feeling of the music that you create at the moment, the KNARS kind of spirit, how do you describe?
KNARS is all about the combination of mosh pit mayhem with a message. So it's all about raw energy and having something to say, which makes it, for me, the most personal project that I've done, because that's been the biggest artistical development through the I think the Corona years has been that previously I worked with more of a band concept, but already before Corona hit, we already felt that the energy was kind of drained in that project, so I pulled all the creative decision making to myself as the project initiator, and I sort of thought, well, then Martijn, there you go, write what you want to write. And then I was a bit stuck because I could only find that I was writing generic rave songs, and thus gave myself the assignment to make it more personal and really say then what I exactly wanted to say. And that has been the main direction for the new material that's coming up. And that material has been on the shelf for a long time because our album released 3 years ago already, and there's a lot of new material. And I can also say that it's gonna be published under another name, so that actually this is probably still published as a KNARS interview, but KNARS is probably gonna die. But well, that's not.
Is it?
It is, yeah. But I haven't found a new name yet, so for everybody listening, if you have an idea, please send me a message. But so the music sounds raw and energetic, and it's a mix of genres. It's actually more like you could describe it, I think, as a rapper who produces his own beats, which are really diverse and really well sound designed. So we have a lot of influences from bass music. It's mainly like garage, drum and bass, jungle influences, some house even in there, and it's music to go crazy on, but it's also music with a message and sort of a melancholic / frustration / cynical aspect to it.
There's always been something that I find with you as a person, actually, and also the music that you make, where you manage to kind of craft a space where people feel really comfortable to kind of show themselves. I find that you unlock that kind of ability, even just like you talking normally, and definitely through KNARS, there's like something that you deliver people. You sort of craft this space for people to feel comfortable. I think that's incredible, and I'm curious kind of how you approach the kind of compositional process. Do you hold the audience in mind, or like does that resonate with you as an aim of yours?
Oh, wow, that's a huge question. Well, I have to say that honestly, it's a really selfish process when I write music. I just want to do what I want to do, and but that's not entirely true, because I always keep sort of in mind that it is for this project, and then I do have a certain goal, but that goal is mainly have the best piece of music and not really create a safe space as a main goal. But I also think art shouldn't have to be a safe space. I think art should make you feel uncomfortable as well, and scare you a little bit sometimes, because it's a reflection of the human soul, which is also has a lot of bad sides, as Jesus said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone, which I think not a lot of people are. So well, Jesus. Your question, what was it?
We've gone straight into the depths, haven't we?
Let's get into the depths, the abyss.
I love it.
No, you were asking whether what the compositional process looks like, and whether I keep in mind to create a safe space for people. Well, I do want people to go crazy and dance and let that all out. So catharsis is definitely an element, but I don't write the music necessarily with that in mind, what it does for the audience, but mainly for myself. More and more, actually, yeah.
There's something that, I mean, we've been working together now for 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing, actually, when you think about it, because this project obviously began during right at the beginning of coronavirus, and the whole kind of concept of what was possible to make changed at that point. But during this process, we've had lots of conversations, which I've absolutely loved. And I think the word personal and catharsis and rage come up the most in our conversations.
Yeah, and medicine.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, during this climate, obviously there's the personal story of you as the maker, right? Keeping focused and working on a show for that length of time. But there's also the kind of context that this show is going to sit in when it does actually happen. And I'm just curious, like, how that's affecting what it is you're designing. So before we kind of go into that, I guess, level of depth of question, maybe you can just share what your vision for a live experience that with Revelland is going to look, feel, and smell and taste and be like.
Okay, so you want me to describe that really, really concrete and detailed, or more in broad conceptual?
Let's start concrete and then let's go conceptual.
Okay, so but that will also mean spoiling things, right? Then I'm gonna spoil the ideas that we have that I want to be a surprise.
You get it. I don't want to.
No, I don't want to.
Okay, well.
I come to my live show. You'll find out. No, I'll do it broadly. What was really, like, but the people who hear this don't know that we've been developing like a rage room concept before this. So like a safe space where people can actually break stuff, because we wanted to create that safe space that you mentioned, but then for corona applicable in a corona safe sense, but also trying to find a more immersive way of expressing that catharsic element of my thing by physically breaking stuff as a way of therapy and release, and that unfortunately was great if you go like in a smaller group, but now with things sort of so opening up again, I've been trying to implement the same elements, which are sort of working because I've found a more immersive way to do something with the audience, but it's less violent and more because there's more space for the general mosh pit. There people can dance, and then we have some new special elements that we added through mainly performers that are going to do this while we are playing the music. So we're gonna paint the music with all the other senses, and the main assignment from Revelland has also been to make this sustainable, so that we can continue playing this show after the presentation. So the ideas we had to implement also have to be sustainable or redoable and cheap, not cost thousands.
And so how has this brief felt to you? Because I suppose, I mean, when you talk about your normal gigs, you know, a mosh pit is pretty immersive, right? When you're in one. So how is this different, I suppose? Is this process different to your typical process?
Yeah, absolutely, because you have challenged me to think more of a show as a structural story. So one of the main things that I've implemented is the element of storytelling and having a narrative, and the narrative has become to conquer your demons, and that has been new because in the previous sense I would basically only think musically and purely audio. So I would purely think in what way do we build up the set energy wise, and now I've been thinking more like how to build that up artistically and with an arc, and that has definitely been a healthy and more fun way to look at art. And because not that I'm painting something now, but art in the sense of that music and a live performance is art, and that you can bring something to the audience.
It's amazing to think about it being something that might have an impact on future gigs or experiences that you might deliver. I don't know if that resonates with you, but it sounds like it's opened up a way of thinking that might impact other things, other projects.
Yeah, it's just that I'm in a bit of a pickle, as they say, in the sense that our act is so deep in development that we currently, even if Corona would be over right now, we still wouldn't sell shows, because that's just how the market works. Pop music is an extremely competitive market, and we've been very relevant, but now we aren't anymore, in the sense of that we haven't released new music in 2 years, something. So that's all being stashed up, and there's a lot of new music and a lot of videos, but that means that I think very economically, and I can't pay the extra performers for a lot of extra shows. But I have been thinking about implementing all the ideas that we have, and it's definitely something that I want to do in the future. So it has definitely rewritten sort of the way how I look at a live show, but also really for KNARS. And I also think that all the other projects that I do all require a different approach as well. But sort of have the same way of investigating that process. So Jesus, well, that's hard to really specify in English, but in Dutch,
you're doing
in
amazing.
Dutch we have the word kapstok, which is kind of like the thing where you hang everything onto your clothes, like you hang your clothes on, which is like a way of saying you have that as a main structure where you can then apply every project to, for example, in this case. So I'm definitely thinking in a new way about creating live performances, and it's going to be fun for the future. Yeah.
And you mentioned some really interesting things around the kind of sustainability of the idea, or the challenge that Revelland sort of set you and the other bands. And there's obviously been lots of creative challenge in that way, but to center this kind of experience that you're having and this process in the climate that we're in, with the coronavirus happening and all the kind of the turbulence around that in terms of what is possible. Can you just shed a little light for listeners into the process you've been on, from let's just even just try and cast our minds back to the first call that we had to where we are now? Like, how has this process been for you, and how has the turbulence challenged or opened up things for your creativity?
It's been absolutely awful. It's been terrible. Because everything had to be digital, and I fucking hate that. I just so mainly the plan was to have a weekend together and have all the coaches, and that would have been amazing. Also, just for the group building and the community sense and the togetherness of it all. But now that was like a day-long Zoom call, which was the worst call I've ever been in. It's been terrible. But that I can hardly blame that on Revelland. Because it's just been the only way to do a process like this in the circumstances, I think. And but yeah, it was definitely, I've rarely been in a process that I've really looked up against as much as this. So congratulations for that. But no, it sounds really unthankful, but yeah, it's just been a lot. Also with the redeveloping it constantly, with first coming up with the show, then with Corona, we found that scenario of doing a 30 people live gig, like a really small walk the line edition, and then we had to redevelop it to a larger audience again. And now last Friday, I think we heard that everything is gonna be closed down unless seated, and that's something with KNARS that we really said, like, we are not gonna play seated shows. That's just not what we're gonna do. Because fuck that, with a mosh pit band, that's gonna be the boring thing ever. I'll happily come with one of my other projects, but not with KNARS. So right now, yeah, well, it's gonna open up sometime. But it's definitely not in that sense hard to switch, but it's hard for me because I carry a lot of the executive power on my own as well. So I don't have a large team. I had to organize a tryout next week with all the dancers, the audience, the location, the mixers. I need to rent lights. I need to make sure the musicians. I need to make sure we have a writer. I need to make sure we have a sound guy. I need to make sure that the dancers know where they come up and off. I need to make sure we have rehearsals. I need to make sure that I have a time schedule, somebody to receive the guests, some food. Like, there's so much that I have to carry on my own, and I don't mean to sound like I'm suffering and sad, but it's a lot when that is gonna be cancelled like now, and that's just Jesus fucking Christ, and it's just a lot of energy draining happening, which is not to blame on anyone, but I am the guy that has the has the negative feedback from that the most, because I've invested all my time in it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's negative feedback. To me, this is just an explanation of part of the point of making art is that the art happens, right? And there's this just kind of impotence that comes, or this frustration that comes from dreaming up all these amazing things, putting in all the work, crafting every element, communicating, consolidating, holding a team, building and building and building. And that's a lot of adrenaline that then to find out kind of moments before, weeks, even months before, there's still a big adrenaline drop that happens in those moments when things are postponed or cancelled. And it's a big challenge that I know is not solely your challenge. That's a global creative arts challenge right now, is holding motivation when a lot of our release and the kind of completion of a work isn't possible. That's a very intense thing to keep our heads down. One of the big kind of aims of Revelland, as you know, because you, I think of any of the creatives have had the most experience, one of the core aims is accessibility and inclusivity, and using immersivity or sensory tools as a way of access, promoting access. Can you speak a bit about your experience with Sense City and what that unlocked for you, and then just share about what inclusivity and accessibility mean to you in relation to live performance?
Well, first of all, it's sad that some people can't experience art because genes or tragedy decided that it had to be different. I mean, it's not necessarily sad, but because you can still be happy, I guess. But it's still a factor that you can miss out on, and so it's cool to be able to sort of supply another way of expressing that art, and start thinking in that direction as well. That's really something that's missed out on a lot by creators, I think, as well. That's what I think is the coolest thing about this project, is that it helps creators think to really create something that is more immersive and translated to the other sensual languages. And I've been lucky to have been invited to create a Sense City show twice before, so I sort of already had a broad idea of what to think about. But those shows were created with a lot of money, a lot of subsidized in dollars, and that's something that we don't have now and not for the future. So we want to. The hardest thing has been to translate a creative idea into that sustainable element, and that can be really hard. But we also found some really fun solutions that I'm super excited about to go and bring into the world. With taste, for example, I had always been focused on then we need a cook or we need a fridge to get ice cream to people after the show, stuff like that, which all would have been a big hassle. And I'm a big health freak, so I sport a lot, I eat very healthy, and then one day I ate a vitamin C pill, and one of those super sour sweet ones, and that burst in my mouth like, oh, what the fuck, what's this taste? And then I came to the idea, we could those are really small pills, we can easily grab a few bottles and hand those out to people at the show. That already can be a fun part, but it's going to be a small part, and it's not going to be as immersive as audio or visual can be. But it's a fun addition, but it's not a replacement for.
Wait, say more about. That's really interesting what you just said. Say more about what that means, that your perspective on immersivity is. If you're saying audiovisual is more immersive than this taste, why is that?
Yeah, taste can't replace that, and it's a nice addition. But it's just like going to opera and not knowing what the opera is about. Then you can definitely hear amazing singing and playing, but you will be like, well, yeah, whatever. But when you really know what the story is about, then you can be like, oh man, at that point I was so into it. I felt so sad because I understood that feeling of hopelessness or whatever. It's just an example. It's also with music when you don't. Well, that's gonna be a long discussion talking about music as a commercial sense and art, and that there's commercial music to just dance to, and then you have like singer-songwriters or rappers who really have a message and stuff. Then you also quickly reach my personal belief that music has to be about that message. But then again, I think 90% of music consumption is never about that message and all about music as a sort of what's the word for that, like paint on the wall, like background music, just a vibe or a party, or it's never about really what an authentic individual has to say. Well, sometimes it is, and I admire those artists as artists the most. And the other music I admire as really well executed sonic elements, but not as story told. But I'm drifting off the question again.
No, well, I suppose the thing that I was sort of picking up on is that you have a perspective on what it is to be immersed in something. And I don't know, I obviously thought about this a lot. And I think one of the things that music has is it controls time.
Yeah.
In a way that obviously flavor is time-based, as in you put it in your mouth, you chew it, you get the flavor, you swallow, right? So there is a journey, but it's not like the chef controls the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yet.
You don't have a mouth implemented mechanism that releases the taste at the exact time that the music is at its peak. No. No, it has to be a voluntary process to take the taste in. Yeah.
And there's something about kind of story and music and visuals that kind of can all move through time really elegantly in a way that means you stop noticing the kind of exterior elements or the things that are making it work. You stop noticing the speakers, you stop noticing the projector or whatever is the kind of functional element, and you just allow the thing to take you for the duration. And there's something that is different about taste in particular. Smell obviously just kind of also has the same capacity. It just arrives and then it disappears. But taste is kind of different. And so in terms of your kind of experience with pairing sensory things with your music, do you think that there's further that you want to go with this way of thinking about your
absolutely fucking lovely. I think it's
to take more.
But that's just
where do you see it going? What's the future?
Yeah, man, I have big dreams, madam. I have big dreams, but those are expensive dreams. And they are. For example, I want to write a movie series about Julius Caesar or Napoleon, which are like really interesting people to me. But I'm not in the foreseeable future I'm going to be able to realize that. But how cool would it be if you would go to a movie and you would have the blood splattering over your face, or you would actually have to fight someone while you're at the movie, or you would have the smell of Julius Caesar's his home country, and that would come back in flashbacks and dreams, or you would be super exhausted and then have the first taste of a meal after a battle that you and your fighting buddies got defeated in, and then you have that feeling of the, oh my god, fresh bread, fresh water, this is the best. Like I would, those are experiences that you can write, but those are hard to really immersively experience. But that would be the fucking coolest thing to do, to create a journey that's so intense. That'd be something that I'd love, but it'd be really hard to do.
Oh, I believe you could do it. But you know I'm in your corner anyway. Always. So the final kind of exploration around the process, which a bit more around the kind of accessibility process. How was it that you began to think accessibly? Did you notice a shift in your own creative process? Do you think that there are some examples of what you've integrated or what you're designing that are brilliant ways of thinking about accessibility and inclusivity inside of a set? And can you share some examples?
Well, the first part of your question...
Or do you not want to reveal the magic?
No, you're right. But I think that rage room concept is a great example, right? Because that's a really immersive thing. But it can also be limiting to have to make something accessible. Because, for example, we're developing like lyric videos, which I think are a great way for people that can't hear to know what the music is about, which is really important. But it's also something that I don't really want to create as an experience, because it's very distracting to keep on reading like a karaoke show while it's all about being in the moment. So there are also definitely like downsides. Also for me as a creator, I feel the weight and the responsibility to create something that's accessible for everyone. But then that responsibility can really kill your creative vibe, because sometimes it's just not an accessible starting point, but an artistic starting point, and then it can feel like something that you have to implement, for me, because I take it really serious. But what's
interesting about what you just said, that it really strikes me, is the two examples, the kind of lyric video versus rage room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a rage room, if you were to say to someone, design an accessible experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not the first thing that people are going to think of.
But that's big. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I think that is why there's so much in it, is because it's not saying I'm going to break down all the elements of my show and think about, in the same way that writing the lyrics out, that helps people access the words, but it doesn't necessarily communicate the vibe. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily communicate the kind of the ineffable sensations of listening to the music. It's just sort of like, these are the lyrics, but it doesn't have the melody or the rhythm or the intonation of the singer inside of those lyrics. Whereas the rage room is different, because it's flexible and it's got more capacity for the audience to kind of become hyper-focused in a state of being, which makes it naturally more immersive. And also you have to put a lot of kind of safety regulations around making that a space which people can actually use. Mm-hmm. And it isn't, it's not in a habit, which a lot of old accessibility thinking is kind of in the process of saying, oh, poor you, and we're going to make this accessible, but there's a kind of patronizing element. This is not a patronizing concept. Mm. This is just come in, rage, everyone's angry sometimes. And so I think the richness of the rage room as a accessible concept is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And now you need to stop putting feathers in your own butt there, Stephanie, because it was partly your idea to create the rage room.
Yes, I am putting feathers in my own butt.
So much inspiration. You're a genius.
But, basically, I'm a genius. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, but
it came from you. I just articulated it.
You're the best. But there's one very interesting thing that you're saying about that, because to what point are you then still being a musician, and in what point are you being a rage room facilitator? And are you more busy cleaning up a rage room from people that rage than making and writing music? That's kind of that matrix that I'm sort of in conflict with, and that's why for really accessible and immersive experience you just need a lot of manpower and to make that happen. And that's been the biggest challenge, to think of something that doesn't need that manpower.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially with somebody who already, I'm talking about you, is wearing so many hats already, you know, managing projects, art directing projects, composing projects, and now producing events, which is a whole thing that requires detail and a lot of spreadsheets.
You're right.
But maybe it's also the kind of habit that we have in the modern world, which is easing slightly in my experience, which is our obsession with isolating single roles that we as individuals play, rather than looking at ourselves as kind of complex individuals that can kind of seep into many disciplines in the kind of polymath way of being. And the experience creation, music experience creation, is much more polymathematical than it is single gifted solo task person, you know?
But it has been in that way for a reason, and I don't follow those rules, and there are probably more creators who don't, but that's it's there for a reason, because there's also a reason why all top 40 songs that you, listener, are listening to are all written by somebody else, then mainly by 5 other writers than the one who's performing it and whose name you found that song under. Like, there's a reason for that, because some people are better at writing lyrics or writing melodies or writing a song than they are at performing and being at a constant focus point of attention. And there's a reason why a movie is written, directed, filmed. Man, there's so much credits in a film. Like, there are reasons for that, because everything is a separate skill. So it can also be a bit delusional for me to think that I can just learn each skill and do it all like that. I mean, it's years of schooling and experience behind all those skills. It's a lot of arrogance somewhere that I think that I can just do that. It's pretty.
I think
hubris.
It's a different thing to imagine and dream up something, and to manage a team who are incredibly brilliant at delivering those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a different thing if you're saying, yes, not only will I play this music that I've written and I will be singing it, I'll also be cooking on stage and feeding the audience my amazing food, as well as like this perfume that I created. You know, that's not what you're doing. But I hear
the cooking on stage thing is inspiring. Maybe I should implement.
Why don't we think about that?
Yeah, that's good. Fuck yeah, let me.
Food fight.
That'd be fun. That'd be super fun.
So I suppose the kind of final question is, mostly the people that will be engaging with these podcasts, we're imagining, will be people who would be interested in entering into a creative process similarly to this. So they'll probably be music creators. And in your experience, what would you say as a piece of advice to creators thinking about going on this type of journey?
That's an annoying question. Because also, who am I? Who am I to say that? Because I'm really curious about your experience actually with all the other acts and how they have been through a different process, each of them. Like I think you are the best to really give the advice on this matter, because you've seen all the different processes of different artists, and who also all have different roles in different groups. So it first of all, the thing, I think it's all about defining what you're about and what you want to do. That's the main thing with everything in life, I guess. But so it's like, are you a writer or are you a group? That's already such a different process, I think. And then it's about what do you want to bring, what do you want to say, and are there other ways to say or bring that? And then my suggestion would be to keep it small, because we can all dream super big, but can you deliver those dreams as effective in a sustainable small way that can still fit in your budget? Where there are just so much surprising solutions, like throwing raisins in the crowd or spraying them with water. I don't know, what the fuck. What am I saying? So, piece of advice, I can't really, because it's such... If
you just gave 2 pieces of great advice.
Yeah, but...
Like, just quit while you're ahead.
Okay, all right, I'll keep it at that.
They were great pieces of advice.
But why I think I can't give advice is because each artistical process is so different. Listener, as a creator, are probably doing something from your soul, and I make my music and you don't make my music, so we come from a very different starting point. So your goal is probably very different than mine. Your goal is probably going to be very boring and mosh pitless, and nobody's going to come. Just like everybody's not coming to my shows. So we're all in this together.
And on that optimistic note,
let's go. I love Corona. No, but really, it is a different process for you. So your ideas have to come from you, please do think of yourself as a great creator, which has more potential than just music. Just make music your limit and break it. So do more than just the music, and do it in a fun way, something that inspires you, something that you think would be cool, that you would want to experience. And dream big but execute small, something like that. Yeah.
These are perfect answers, honestly. Like, that's gorgeous.
Nice.
Well, we'll leave this episode there. There's so much more to talk about. I feel like I could ask you 1,000 more questions.
I'd love that.
That
Some
is
of the time.
all the time that we have. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your positivity has been an inspiration. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.